Ladies and gentlemen, now today, thanks to the hard work of MCOC Journal and the legendary data miner Otriux, we're going to be having our first look at the data mined abilities for Squirrel Girl. Now, from what I've seen so far, I'm going to break everything down today. Squirrel Girl, she seems very different from any other champion in this game, and it looks like potential-wise, I don't think she's going to be a beyond god tier game-changing champion, but I think she'll be a fun addition to the game that can do like a couple of things quite well. So let's have a bit of a chat about the basics of Squirrel Girl. So the big thing is that you have your squirrel companion Tippy-Toe that is on you at the beginning of each battle. Now, if you have her awakened ability, it does two things. You immediately start with a 40-hit combo, and this is important for transferring the squirrel. And also, when Tippy-Toe causes immediate bleeding, each bleed debuff has a 70% chance to be refreshed instead of being removed. And this seems like quite a big thing for Squirrel Girl, especially when it comes to damage ramp up, theoretically, and we'll talk about this in a moment. So the first ability is while the squirrel is on you, your medium attacks cause a bleed on the opponent, and if it's a non-crit, it's going to be 6 seconds, but if it's a crit, it's going to be slightly more damage over 12 seconds, and this 12-second bleed is more important because it allows you to stack even more of them up, but also light attacks while the squirrel is on you as well, add an additional hit to your combo meter. So it just counts for like an additional 1 man as if the squirrel was attacking, but they don't actually attack. It's just like an additional hit on the combo there. So the next thing is about transferring the squirrel. So the squirrel goes on to whatever opponent is knocked down, and that seems to be the primary way to transfer the squirrel to the opponent. So using a heavy attack, using a special attack to knock them down, and that will attach the squirrel to your opponent for 15 seconds. So when attached to the opponent, you can consume up to 40 hits from your combo meter to activate 3 various effects on the opponent. So also there appears to be an ability, and I think this is charging a heavy attack here, where you can get your squirrel back. Because looking at some of the early gameplay as well, I think this is what it is, but it might be something a little bit different. But it does look like there is a way outside of this debuff expiring to get your squirrel back early to send it back for even more damage output. So also just something to note as well is that the attachment of the squirrel is not affected by ability accuracy. So ability accuracy isn't going to mess up this champion, but when attached to Squirrel Girl, so when initially attached, it can purify all non-damaging debuffs on Squirrel Girl, and while attached, she gets additional block proficiency as well, which is pretty nice. However, when attached to the opponent, causes a damage reduction. Hitting an injured opponent will ignore 100% of their physical resistance there. Also, while attached, if 30 combo was consumed, you trigger a distraction, preventing evade and auto block effects. And also, if 40 combos are consumed during the attachment period, an immediate bleed is triggered, and each bleed debuff on the opponent will cause explosive direct damage and eliminate all bleed debuffs. However, via the awakened ability, you have the chance to refresh these bleed debuffs on an individual basis. However, as we touched on earlier, via the awakened ability and also the special 3, which we'll talk about in a moment, there is this chance to, instead of eliminating the bleed debuffs, just refresh them. So if you refresh them, that's the immediate bleed damage, and it looks like you can get the squirrel back to send the squirrel back again to detonate them. And I think if you can like chain this on a little bit with various ways that she can really ramp up our combo, because again, to get this detonation, you do need to consume 40 hits on your combo meter, but also the special 3 immediately adds on, I think it's like 100 hits as well. But this damage, man, I think it could be something maybe if you ramp her up right that is a little bit spicy, because I think in this early video from Otriux, kind of just detonating like 5 stacks of bleed here, it was about 8,444 damage. I don't think that's with any like super special mastery setup or build, and it looks like especially with the special 2 you can get to quite easily between like 15-20 stacks of bleed. So maybe this detonation could be something a little bit special, a little bit interesting, especially if you can just keep on like refreshing the bleeds, stacking them up, like detonating even more. So I don't know, man, maybe there's a bit of excitement, a little bit of potential when it does come to the damage, but it's also very hard to tell at this time. So I'm very curious to see how she works, but it's getting me excited, the potential of what Squirrel Girl could be. But again, she looks very like different and very interesting. But now just to move on to some of her abilities. So the special one summons a squirrel army and inflicts a distraction debuff that prevents evasion and auto block. Also the last blow gives her an increase on the combo count of 10, and Squirrel Girl gains an infinite combo shield buff, but when she's hit, the combo shield gain is lost after 2 seconds instead of resetting the combo meter. So it's only good for like one little mess up there, man, but being able to get combo shield off a special one, you know, is always nice for a little bit of a safety net if you need it there, and also good for ramping up the combo and ignoring evasion and auto block. So it seems like it has some good uses. We got the special 2. So the special 2 has a lot of bleeds, but also during the special 2 it pauses the timer on all bleeds on the opponent as well. So that seems like it's going to have some really nice uses for kind of ramping the bleeds up and building more bleeds to detonate via the immediate bleed. Then finally, you've got the special 3, so it's going to inflict 3 bleed debuffs, causing damage over 20 seconds. So these are very long bleeds, actually. And also, Squirrel Girl gets an additional 100 hits on her combo meter, so allows you, you know, enough to do like 2.5 immediate bleed detonations there. So that's a really, really nice chunk of hits for her other abilities. But also, if Small Toe caused an immediate bleed in this attack, so if you transfer the squirrel with this attack, because the special 3 is going to knock the opponent down after, each bleeding debuff has a 30% chance to be refreshed rather than removed. So combined with the awakened ability, it looks like there is going to be a 100% chance after the special 3 to detonate the bleeds and also refresh all of them as well. So I think she looks very quirky in terms of her playstyle, and it's so hard to tell just on paper how good she's going to turn out. But I think she has a fair bit of potential damage-wise if she works the way that I think she's going to work. But also, one of the things that does like concern me a little bit, it kind of looks like when playing this champion, you really only have the way to counter evade and auto block via the special one and also via transfer in the squirrel. And it looks like because you have both of these methods, there's probably going to be close to a 100% uptime on it, which is really, really nice. However, I am concerned that there isn't really any other utility when you're playing this champion. If you get knocked down and the squirrel's on your opponent, the squirrel will come and like remove non-damaging debuffs by the look of it. But aside from that, it doesn't really seem like there's much else going on for Squirrel Girl offensively. But one thing just to keep in mind as well, that these are early data mined abilities. So when it comes to these type of videos, generally we've got about 80-90% of the stuff, but there's a few things that might pop up when it does come to the champion going live. But also, just to go back to the early look at Squirrel Girl, because looking at this video, man, like, just everything adds up from the leaked abilities. Because Squirrel Girl, she starts initially with 40 hits there. You can also see that this brown debuff is the scroll debuff, so that indicates that the squirrel is actually on Squirrel Girl, and it goes to a bit of a darker shade of brown. It's going to have like its own icon, man, when it comes into the game. I would imagine, and not just be this mysterious question mark, but the special one fired off by the Squirrel Girl on the right-hand side activates a combo shield there, which is then broken. You can see the medium attacks here trigger a bleed. The heavy attacks also trigger a bleed as well. So lots of bleeds on this champion. I imagine she's actually going to have quite good synergy with Despair as well. The special 2 has lots of attacks, lots of bleeds, but also on the special 2 it looks like you can crit bleed as well, so I think the crit bleed does apply to all the bleeds that she has. But looking at the numbers here, you can see the damage from the bleeds themselves are quite small, and it appears to be, you know, from what we saw a little bit earlier on in this video, that the big bleed damage does come from the detonation of the the bleeds and the immediate damage there. So I'm curious to see how that looks on like a really stacked up opponent where you have like, again, 15 to 20 bleeds, and with the special 3, can you stack and refresh any more? You might even be able to get like 30, 50, maybe even higher than that. But again, you need the bleeds on the opponent. You also need hits on your combo meter, because every time you want to detonate, it's 40 hits there. So I think there are going to be some quirky ways to play around with Squirrel Girl, man. Like, she does look like a very fun champion to play, but again, I am just a little bit concerned by the lack of utility that this champion does appear to have. And also the disorient on the special 1 appears also to have a very short duration as well, but it did appear long enough to kind of like cancel out evade for the duration of the attack, so you can apply the squirrel after as well. So I think she's going to be an alright evade and auto block counter. There are a lot of very annoying evade and auto block champions, but there are also a lot of counters to evade and auto block champions. Now, just one thing I wanted to go back and quickly cover, because again, I don't know how you get the squirrel back to you, but it seems like there's this mystery like grey debuff that charges up when she's charging a heavy attack and doesn't have the squirrel, because this one doesn't appear, and this kind of lines up from what we see in the game files. So hopefully that's the way to get the squirrel back. I don't think in this clip he kind of fully charges it enough to get the squirrel like back to him so he can send it out again. But I think that is the way to do it. But again, I'm not too sure, man, and stuff could change between now and release. But also, one thing I wanted to very quickly cover, just to finish off this video, is the synergies that Squirrel Girl has. So to start off, she has a very nice one with Sentinel. So Squirrel Girl, when fighting robot opponents and they're immune to bleed effects, Squirrel Girl apparently turns her bleed into some sort of degeneration or impact effect. So it's like an alternate form of degeneration by the look of it. So I think that means she's not going to be gimped against robot matchups there, which looks quite nice. And also Sentinel, each time an opponent is incinerated or impacted by an opponent who is immune to incinerate, Sentinel will gain 2 levels of analysis. So I assume this follows the similar thing if it's like doubled in mutant matchups as well. So yeah, just makes Sentinel like a little bit easier to ramp up. Certainly not essential, but Sentinel has like no synergies at the moment, man. So that is a nice little one for him to have, certainly. And then we've also got Super Nanny with Luke Cage, and this one looks really, really cool. So Squirrel Girl starts the battle with a permanent Fury, increasing her attack value by 10% until Squirrel Girl's combo count becomes 0 for whatever reason. Now, the attack value by 10% is nice. I imagine, like, playing this champion, as long as you don't mess up, you probably won't, like, run out of combo there, but I don't know why it has to have a criteria to go away, because it's not, like, the biggest attack bonus in the world. So, yeah, that looks okay, but the Luke Cage one seems really cool. So, Luke Cage, if you're hit by your opponent's special 3 during the indestructible period, you will get a Fury buff, increasing your attack rating by 50% for 20 seconds. Now, I think that's going to be really good for Luke Cage, man. Like, in the right setup, in really any setup, to be fair, because Luke Cage is damage multiplier, it's all via the exhaustion, so having a huge amount of additional attack on top of that, I think it's going to be pretty decent for Luke Cage, and also it's quite generous in terms of again, both the attack value, 50%, and also the duration as well, 20 seconds there. So for every 20 seconds, you can tactfully take a special 3, trigger indestructible. I think if you've got very high sig, you can maybe get that, man. A bit more damage output going on there, but a little bit of a quirky one. I reckon that one's going to be okay, and a nice to have if you've got a smaller team. And then we've got a synergy with Dr. Doom, so increases the duration of Dr. Doom's aura by 2 seconds, and this one just makes Dr. Doom like so much easier to play and a little bit less stressful in matchups where you don't have buffs to enhance Mystic Dispersion and thus fuel your power. So I think that one's going to be alright. And also MODOK, Mordo, and another champion as well, Mystery Champion, apparently gain 10% attack rating during battle with heroes. So, yeah, that kind of seems alright, man, but also there's a final one for Squirrel Girl, so when the Squirrel will purify all non-damaging debuffs, it will also purify 1 damaging debuff as well, but that ability can only be used once per battle. So, I don't know if there's, like, any way to purposely trigger it. Maybe if you, like, summon the Squirrel to you, can get rid of, like, half the Suicide Masteries. I don't know if it works like that, but maybe, man, who knows. It looks like Squirrel Girl is going to be a lot of special attacks, so maybe this isn't going to be the best strategy to use, but it could work or help you out of a tricky scenario in the right matchup there. Then also, against villains, she gains an additional 10% attack rating, so I don't think this applies to anybody apart from Squirrel Girl there. So yeah, that's a nice little bonus as well. But overall, man, I think Squirrel Girl, she looks like she's going to be an interesting addition to the game. And I'm very curious to see some gameplay, the final numbers, whether or not she's going to have a little bit more utility when it does come to this champion going live early next week, I would imagine. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Squirrel Girl, man. She seems like she could be a fun one. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on Squirrel Girl. And if this video can hit 11 likes, we are going to release the early ability breakdown for Nova, which is going to be coming very, very shortly. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Please do smash that like button. Take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.